WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, our website, www.wvtcradio.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users. Thank you for tuning to WVTC Radio Detroit and the Community Bell Show with your host, former Wayne County Commissioner Edna Bell. Stay tuned for insightful information Detroiters will find valuable. Text a friend and tell them to watch with you for news you can use. And now, your host, Edna Bell.
All right. It's Monday, and no, I am not Edna Bell, but this is the Community Bell right here on WVTC, the gospel radio station right here in Detroit. And this is the fourth Monday, and guess what? We have the sheriff on with us. And we also have another guest. So we want to welcome everybody on to the show today. So, how are you doing today, Sheriff?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
All is well and getting better.
All right.
Yeah, and we're hopefully we can get Commissioner Bell on, and we will be rocking and rolling. But until we get here, we know that we have an exciting show with you. As we always do, we learn so very much. with what's going on in Wayne County and the
Yes.
Sheriff's Department. So
Yes.
thank you so much for coming out. So
Sure.
what's going on in the county?
So I have we got a lot going on in the county, and the holiday season for as it relates to Halloween is coming up, and
Oh, yeah.
getting ready for that, mounting up to make sure our children are safe and that they're having a good time while they're out trick or treating, and so we're moving into that direction. To be here before you know it, these months
Before you know it.
seem to go by so fast, and so on.
And you know what, Sheriff? I do
Mhm.
have a question. People have been approaching me about a purge. Is that on the radar of
I hope it's not.
I
What kind of purge?
they said for Devil's Night.
Oh no, Jesus! I hope not.
I hope not too.
I'm
I
glad
hope
you
not
told me
too.
that because I've seen those purge movies, and some people it's crazy. Some people think that that purge might not be a bad idea. You get what is it, 24 hours to rid crime away, or take people out of the mix of life period, and maybe the world will be better if they're not in it. I don't know what the thought is on this thing, but it's a very interesting concept, that's for sure. People are talking about that a lot. When that movie came out, I think I've seen 2 or 3 of them. I'm
Okay.
just a movie buff. I just like to go to movies. So,
And seeing, I've never seen one.
oh yeah.
I've heard
Mhm.
heard them talk about it on another show that I was watching.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, OMG.
No, we want to see. We kind of got rid of this whole Devil's Night thing and
Yes, we did.
turned it into an Angel's Night,
We
and
did.
to be going very well, and I think the news media even started helping us out by not talking about it so much, not talking about, oh, we're coming into Angel's Night or Devil's Night. Just take it out of the atmosphere, and I think we've been okay the last few years. Well, pandemic hit, and that helped.
That helped. Yeah.
We didn't want it to be helping like that, but we're getting ready to do it. I'm glad you brought that up though, because I hadn't heard that, but we need to watch out for that.
Yeah, they told me, because I got another text today. They said, do you all have, I heard it's supposed to be on Devil's Night. And I was like, oh, no. No, we don't want that.
We
And
don't
our
even
city
recognize
is doing so well. Our county is coming back.
Coming
And
back.
we're so impressed and so happy, because I grew up in Wayne County,
Right.
and it was a beautiful place for me to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
And as the years went on, things kind of went another way, but
Right.
they're swinging back the other way, and we want to keep it going that way.
We absolutely do, about whatever we can. So we're going to hope that that's not true.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna, if it is true, we're gonna make sure we're out here as we have been every year, making sure our children and everyone else are safe during that Halloween, Devil's Night, Angel's Night kind of 2-3 day cycle. So yeah, we're going to be out here. So hopefully,
all right.
They won't
as Reverend Cleveland would say, I feel a little better now.
There you go. I'm glad you feel a little better now.
I feel a little better now.
Know that we're gonna be out here for you.
Yeah.
So, but I have one of my staff members on here with me. I wanted to bring her on. I try to highlight the sheriff's office.
You do
as much as I can.
You do
different various people who are running things within the sheriff's office, and I have one with me now, Dr. Regina Banks Hall, who is our director over our grants. She's responsible for seeing to the grants that we have, that they're functioning properly, and we're getting all the paperwork done to make sure we continue those grants, and then even seeking out new grants as well. So that's what she does, and I brought her on to talk about what she does and answer any questions you may have, because people don't realize we don't just count on county money and county funds to operate our agency. We have to go out and seek out grants and organizations that have to give away money and want to give away funds to help various causes in law enforcement, particularly we're talking about law enforcement. And so that's what she does, and goes out and makes sure that we can keep going with some of the added things that we do to try to protect the community outside of what's budgeted. So I brought her on to talk more about that than I because she knows more about it than I do. You know, I always tell you I just need to know what the cake tastes like. I don't have to know all the ingredients, and I know what it's supposed to. What?
Well, you're making a mighty fine cake, Sheriff. A
Thank you
mighty
very much.
fine cake.
Thank you very much.
You are.
I appreciate it. So, Regina, Dr. Regina Banks Hall, tell us about what's going on.
Thank you, Sheriff Washington,
Yes.
and thanks for having me on the Community Bell Show today. So the grants division for the Sheriff's Office, our job is to really find the additional funding to support various operations and causes that we have within the agency. We always connect it back to the mission of the agency with protecting and serving, and so everything is community based. We currently have grants that we receive from the Department of Justice, which also is a part of that funding is given to other local police agencies based on the requirements set by the DOJ. And that allows them to be able to purchase additional, maybe they will use the funding for equipment, or they may want to use it for personnel. So in addition to that, our role with helping the communities is to oversee and make sure that everybody is in compliance, that you use the funding for the purpose that it was intended. I will conduct site visits. I'll stop by. If you say you purchased a vehicle with the funding, I want to see what the vehicle looks like. And all of that is important because we have to report back to the Department of Justice that the communities are doing what they say that they are doing. It's a huge responsibility in making sure that everything is done above board. These are public dollars. And so we also want to make sure that we're making sure that as the liaison and the person given that responsibility, the sheriff's office, that we are doing everything that we can to assist the communities, but then also everything is above board. People are being held accountable, and we're doing everything that we need to do. We have grants, seatbelt enforcement, making sure that as you're driving down I-75 that you're wearing your seatbelt. We have grants that support the Marines. You'll have deputies out on the waters. So they're just making sure and protecting citizens as well. We utilize a lot of funding for grants. And one of the great things about the Sheriff's Agency, as we are protecting and assisting communities, my job is to seek additional funding. We use funding for marketing. We can use funding. The sheriff just mentioned Halloween. There are a lot of type of grant opportunities that can support youth and other different types of projects that take place within the communities. And so for my role is really just to work with the departments within the sheriff agency, seeking, understanding what their needs are, and then working with the federal agencies, state agencies, and even local partnerships to find additional funding.
So what happens? Do you get a project, or is there a deficit, let's say, in an area, and then you go out and find funding for that particular deficit? Is that what?
So no, one of the things that I do is we have our general fund, and so our budgets are going to cover general funding, the things that we need to take care of inmates that are housed within our facility. But as a grants director, is seeking out funding, and so I am actively seeking funding that offsets the general funds because it allows us to add additional resources. And so if I'm looking for example, we do a lot of recruiting. So our recruiting team is always out there. I'm looking for grants that will help them with their marketing efforts, with billboard advertisements, with radio ads. And so grant dollars can be used effectively to assist them in that area. Because sometimes with an agency as large as ours, we have a very large budget. And so these grant dollars just provide that extra additional resources that allows us to continue to provide services.
So from the time that you identify, or you identify the need, or you get the money, how long does it take for you to actually transfer the money?
It all
Good
depends on
question.
whether it's and that's an excellent question,
It
whether
is.
it's a federal grant. We have one of the things that a lot of these agencies want you to provide, they want a budget. They want to know when we give you this money, what will you be doing with it? And so we have to provide that type of information to them, how we will utilize the funds. We submit performance and progress reports, especially when you're dealing with federal grants, because they're interested in knowing how that will take place. But it can take a month to up to 6 months, depending on the terms of the grants, depending on how much funding they actually have, how many other participants might have applied for that particular grant. Sometimes grants and I'll use the federal government, they may have a particular grant. They may have maybe 50 million that they want to give away. So there may be 25 awards out of that 50 million. And the Wayne County Sheriff's Office is just one of the awardees. And so they'll have their process that there's a timeline when we have to submit the proposal and the grant budget. And so details and dates are very, very important, because when they say we want if the deadline is September 1st, they mean September 1st. And so it's important to make sure that we get the information in on time. And so generally after we've submitted the paperwork, they processed it, they have awarded the grant, then we will share that information with our Wayne County Grants Division, which oversees all of the grants for the county itself.
So when they get the money, and how long does the money last generally? When you get a grant, is it like enough to last a year, 6 months, or is it all relative?
It again, and that's an excellent question as
Good
well.
question.
With state grants, they're usually for 1 year. Sometimes, depending on what's happening within the state, they will extend the grant. For example, we had a COVID grant, which allowed us to be able to purchase COVID supplies. And so that was an extension on that particular grant. And so we will pay attention to deadlines. We're always in contact with our partners at the state or the federal level, just making sure that nothing's going to change with the grant, if there will be additional paperwork. For the JAG grants that we currently have, those grants can generally last for 3 years. And so that community may have 3 years to actually use those fundings. And then there's sometimes an opportunity for that particular grant to actually be extended.
Okay, so is it your position to watch the funds to make sure that
Yes.
yeah,
So it's
it doesn't run out before they think that it's going
yes.
to.
One of my most important jobs of working with the communities is to because we have when we're looking at JAG grants, I've got about 5 of them in operation right now. And so making sure that you're the grants, that you're spending the funds for that particular grant.
Yeah.
So I send out a lot of emails. I make a lot of phone calls. I'll just remind the communities your grant is going to expire at the end of the month. For us right now, one of our grants will expire on September the 30th. So I've already communicated to the communities, please make sure I have all your final paperwork because the grant's actually going to close, because then we need to go through our internal process of reimbursing them back for their funds. So it's definitely important with watching due dates, and then just following up with the communities, just making sure that they are doing what they need to do also as it relates to deadlines.
All right, now I'm going to bring Commissioner Bell on, but while I'm bringing her on, can you tell me what happens at the end of a grant? Is my program just over at that point, or do you try to find more money?
You depending on the type of grant, some of the grants that we have, our seatbelt enforcement grant, that grant continues because that's a state grant, so we just reapply for that particular grant. For the Department of Justice grants, those JAG grants, they continue, and so each year we submit a new application because they'll have different requirements on the purpose of that grant, and they will determine the communities that they want, especially for the JAG grants, the different police agencies that will receive those funds. And so, what I do when I'm looking at other grants, like a grant for like marketing, that might be just a one-time grant. Depending on the agency that's awarding that particular grant, the details, the guidelines. And so watching the proposal, looking at really reading, one of the things that I have to do is read all the details to understand, what is required for this grant, the deadline, the financial reports, because depending on the amount of the grant, they will require us to submit financial reports. And so now I'm working with departments within the sheriff's agency to make sure that the reports are accurate, they're timely, and all of this information is submitted. Because one of the things that's important for us is that we are not considered a high risk grantee, meaning you get grants, but then you don't do the things that you need to do as it relates to the terms of the grant. So I stay in contact with communities. I'm always reaching out and emailing different deputy chiefs or other personnel within other agencies to make sure that they are compliant with the grant terms.
All right.
Those are some great questions you're asking. Like you know a little bit about these grants, how they go.
Yeah, we're trying to get a few ourselves.
I've heard you. I've heard
Okay. All right.
But I do know you have to be careful, with the grants.
you. Yes.
You know, and it's so much in Wayne County, I'm sure, that's hinged upon grants and funding.
That is true. We work with various people who even want to help us in law enforcement. We've had various organizations approach us with, listen, we have funds that we want to share with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, and we want to get you some grants. And they come out and they meet with us, and they commit themselves to that. We're waiting on one. I ran into a lady not long ago at an event who we met with. I think it's called the Frmr group. And Regina, I don't know if you were involved in that. Were you involved in that? Yeah. And she said that's coming. She said they didn't forget about us.
Yeah.
They had some challenges or something happened, but they're coming they're coming with some funding for us. So I meant to tell you and Director Harvey about that as well. So look out for that.
Okay.
Because funding is so important, because you can't run the whole sheriff's office without money.
There's only so much money that the county exec's office, who handles the budget for the county, it's only so much they can split up between everything that they have to do, and we're all in the CEO's office in his ear every other week, and look, we need some money. And Kim Worthy, our prosecutor, saying the same thing, and our county clerk saying the same thing, and our registered deed saying the same thing, and our treasurer. Everybody needs some extra money, and so we do try to help that situation by going after grants that we can.
And it's important and building those relationships. And I think once we really show what the sheriff's office, what we do, how we utilize the funding, it makes it easier for other agencies to want to say we want to partner with you because we see what you're doing, and we can trust what you're doing, and that's also important. And now we can build that relationship, and so that's another uh, role that I play here by reaching out to other organizations, learning about what they're doing as well, and then looking at how we can create that partnership.
Yes.
And I see that the Honorable
Yes.
Edna Bell has joined us.
Yes. Yes.
Well, as my dad used to say, there's more than one way to skin a
Come
cat.
on now.
So
Come on.
so
Come
I've,
on.
I've I'm on my cell phone, so I figured
There you go.
Okay.
I often have to do that myself sometimes. Let me just use
So-
my cell phone. Yes.
So I want to thank the sheriff and Dr. Banks for coming on and sharing all that information. That's one of the reasons we started doing this, is because people just don't know all of the wonderful things that the sheriff office does
Right.
and all the things they're involved in. And I think we've learned so much over the last year
Absolutely.
just by having his people come on and talk about the intricacies of running a sheriff's department. You know, people think it's just some people with a badge on in a car. No,
Way more than that.
it is so much more than that. It's
Yes.
so much more involved in terms of how we help citizens
Yes.
and make sure that they understand and help with their lives and help with the people who are in our Wayne County jails and help them
Yes.
as they come out of the jail. And I
Absolutely.
don't think people know that we don't incarcerate and just let people go.
No.
That's
No.
right.
Talk about that a minute, Sheriff, because I know all the things that you do to
Yes.
help them once they're on their way out.
Yeah, so we want to make sure that, we're always concerned with recidivism and making sure that we don't continue to see the same people over and over and over again. And oftentimes that has to do with them just not having the services once they get out that they need to be productive citizens in our society. And so it's important that we direct them to services like the Catholic services that we're a part of, where we can send them to get clothing, and we can send them to get medical help, and we can send them to get, if it's as little as just to have their eyes checked and dental work and things that just the basic hot showers, the things that people need to feel that they're a part of society and they're a decent person. We send them to those people who can help them. Oftentimes, and I'm taking a shower. I often think, if our homeless population could just feel this, just get a shower,
Yeah.
they'd be much more, they'd be much better than being homeless and out trying to fend for themselves and being presenting themselves the way they do. Just a simple shower. And so we definitely load our inmate population up, as I like to call them, our resident population, with pamphlets and information that when they get out, they can go to these places who are waiting for them. If it wasn't a liability situation, we take them there. But once they're let out, then they're not in our custody anymore, and we don't want something to happen on the way or whatever, and then we have a liability issue. But we definitely let them know where to go and how they can get the help they need to become the productive citizens that I like to think they want to be, if they only had the means to be that person.
Absolutely. Sheriff, let me ask you a question now. Sometimes I know when they're getting out of prison, not jail, but out of prison, sometimes they don't have identification. When we take them in, do they have identification? If they don't, how do we help them get it?
Some of them don't. And the ones that's probably coming out without identification didn't go in with identification. We had to find out through other means who they were, verify those things, and that's how that goes. But when they come out, you can simply take your whatever you have to show that you had been in prison, and they let you out with something. You didn't have ID when you went in there. I would simply say you go to the Secretary of State's office and show them that documentation. And at the very least, you'd be able to get a state ID.
Yes.
You might not be able to get a driver's license, but you can get a state ID. Because we want people to be identified. We want to know who they are. They need to show identification to do a lot of things, most things in this society now. The first thing they ask you, let me see your ID, and so that we want that to happen.
And it's a form of self-esteem that
Yes, it
that
is.
I have something that
Yes,
says who I am, and I can go in and prove who I am, so that I
Yes.
can get whatever service is available to me.
Absolutely, and so that's what they can do, and that's how most people get their life started, and then maybe they move into the driver's license piece, because if they've been in prison longer than 4 or 5 years, then they had a license, it's now expired.
Exactly.
And I don't know, and I'm sure they don't. The Secretary of State doesn't go into the prisons and see who needs another identification, other license. They're not going to be driving,
Yeah.
So that's what you want to do. And again, we want the Secretary of State's office want people to come in and be identified and get their identification.
Excellent.
Mhm.
While I have you, I want to talk about, and I always want to talk about what's going on in the education system and our school system. The
Mhm.
school system is sponsoring a mental health program on the 27th of September at Martin Luther King Jr. Senior High School at 5:30 in the evening to talk with parents about their mental health and the mental health of their children.
Great.
Just want to let everyone know it's so important that those parents who can get there, those guardians or help, whoever it is who can get there to hear the professionals talk about mental health and how it has impacted not just the children, but the staff, the parents, the grandparents, the entire community, particularly over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
It has been a different ball game for most people, but particular children have suffered because they have not been able to be around other children, have not been able to be in school. The parents have had issues. Everybody has had issues. And so there's going to be a discussion on the 27th at Martin Luther King Jr. Senior High School to help parents know how to navigate the system and how to help them help their children with these issues. Because Lord knows, as you see all these things that are going on in the community, people shooting, people stabbing, and people they don't even know. Mental health issues is what they are.
It's mental health. It really is. And people don't like to hear that. They say, are we going to blame everything on mental health? Well,
A lot of it.
these kind of things, you got to have some kind of challenge to go about yourself to do some of the things that we see are being done.
Absolutely.
I've looked at this, and it's not a child, but I looked at the gentleman who just tried to kill the entire family over there in
the WWJ broadcast man who got killed.
I just saw him on TV.
You did see him.
I was surprised. I'm like, I don't even know how that happened. But you got to have some kind of mental illness to hit a 10-year-old in the head with hammers and just try to stab the kill the gentleman and stabbing the mother and the babies, and that's a form of mental illness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's got to be no one who is thinking in their right mind would do such a thing.
Exactly.
And when you look at the gentleman who killed his wife and the dog and then shot his daughter, and
yes.
Just
who does that? It's definitely mental illness, and it's definitely something that I'm glad it's on the radar now. That everybody's really talking about it, and how to get rid of it, because I'm tired of it myself in our jail.
And I'm sure as a law enforcement person, you see a lot more of it than we do.
Well, even in our jail population, I don't like to say it, but it's the truth that we're probably the largest long-term mental health institution in the state of Michigan.
And isn't that sad?
It's sad.
That's sad.
They should not be there, And so, but there's no place else for them to go. Long term.
That's the heartbreak. And we used to have those facilities. Somehow we've got to find a way to get back to recognizing how important mental health is and how we need to help people who have problems.
And I don't know how we had these institutions back then, the Eloise and the Lafayette over here in Detroit, and various other places, long-term places, somebody say, you know what, we're not gonna fund that. We don't need that. Let's just put them out on the street.
And look what we have.
And look what we have. You know, that's
Yeah.
we can talk about that all day.
I'm telling you. But in any case, people, the 27th, go over to Martin Luther King Jr. Senior High School in the evening and hear the mental health professionals talk to parents about how they can help their children and themselves, and talk to the staff about mental health issues and what they can do about those. It's just so important. Another thing.
And also, Commissioner, I don't want to leave this question on the table. We have a question from the audience.
Oh, okay.
And it's, if the funds aren't used by the allocated time, do you have to return the money that wasn't used?
All right, good question.
That is an excellent question. Yes, with especially if these are federal and state grants, they will have some guidelines with what will happen if you do not use the funds. Now, depending on that type of grant, you may be able to reach out to that agency for an extension. And I'll use COVID as an example. A lot of agencies were not able to use funding during 2020 and part of 2021. And so they all would have reached out to the various local, state, and federal agencies asking for an extension on those grant dollars. But definitely, because it's always important, especially if you're utilizing federal, state, and local funding, that these are public dollars, and so we have to be compliant with those requirements. But that is an excellent question. If it's a partnership type of agreement with a foundation or another different type of nonprofit, that will have different requirements that you will have to follow. So for those that are seeking those type of grants, it will be important to look at all of the terms and understand what that agency will require for you as it relates to the return of funding that has not been used.
Excellent question. Thank you for that, caller. We appreciate that. And speaking of callers, I want to say one more time, and you've probably already said this, Sandy, but we won the Stellar Award.
All right.
The best internet station in our market in the country.
I heard that.
Yes.
Congratulations.
We are just still so excited about that.
Congratulations. Yes.
It's a wonderful. Our owner, Miss Rose, was down in Atlanta accepting that award for us, and we're just still so excited about it. We're just we're happy campers, and we're going to continue to talk about that.
Yes, continue to celebrate that.
Yes, celebrate. And we have now been nominated for an award in the state of Texas for internet broadcasting station.
How about that? Yes.
We're excited.
Listen, I'm just glad that the Wayne County Sheriff's Office had a spot on the award-winning network.
Thank you, Sheriff.
And we appreciate you, Sheriff. We say that you're a part of that.
Thank
part
you
of
so
our
much.
family that helped us win. So we thank you for that. We really, really thank you for that. It's still a wonderful award. Our owner has been great, and we're excited about it. Good. 2 more things. On October 14th, Black Women in Michigan Politics will have their second annual luncheon. We had the first one in 2019, but then in 2020 and 2021, you know what happened, so we couldn't have another one.
Right.
But it will take place on October 14th at Washtenaw Community College. And that's when we talk about Black women in Michigan politics from around the state. So we've got people from all over the state that will be coming in on our panel, and people who will be talking about that very issue. So we'd love to have everybody come and join us. It's going to be a great afternoon.
Okay, October 14th.
October 14th. And Sheriff, I'll send you something because you know I'm going to come after you for a few tickets. So
yeah, you know, all you gotta do is let me know. I got you. I got you.
There's one more thing I'm going to come after you for, and that is Women Informal Network. WIN. It's an organization I would happen to be one of the founders of 30 years ago. That all we do is talk about what's good for women in the Detroit metropolitan area. We're celebrating our 30th anniversary, the end of October, and Carolyn Clifford from Channel 7 WXYZ is going to be our speaker. So you'll hear something from me for that one also.
All right.
I want to put those on your radar. Well,
No
it's time for us to go. Thank you so much. Sorry I couldn't get in until late, but I was going to get in come hell or high water.
There
So
you
I
go.
got in
And you made
the
it.
best way I could.
Don't mess with
I
Mama
want-
Bell. She gonna find it.
I'll find a way.
Yes, ma'am.
So, and we'll end our show as we usually do with the quote from Dr. Martin Luther King that says, "Not everyone can be famous, but everyone can be great, because greatness is determined by service. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love." Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Community Bell Show on this Monday.
Thank you. Thank
We'll see
you.
next Monday.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Sheriff. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Banks.
you
We
so much.
appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
All
Have
right.
a great week.
Thank
Take
you. You
care.
too, Phil. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Community Bell with your host, former Wayne County Commissioner Edna Bell. This broadcast was brought to you by WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, our website, www.wvtcradio.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users. If you've enjoyed this broadcast, tell a friend to tune in. We'll see you next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern to the Community Bell Show, right here on WVTC Radio Detroit. You're listening to WVTC Gospel Radio Detroit, and we're flowing in the Spirit.